Nicole Kidman has filed for divorce from Keith Urban after 19 years of marriage. The court papers show the actress will remain the primary caregiver of the couple's teenage daughters.
He's been dodging questions about her for at least 2 months. There was also this incident where somebody asks about her love scenes and he abruptly ends the interview and you could tell that he's angry.
And then what do you know? There are these videos that come to light that seem to show him being flirty with this Maggie woman on stage, who again, like we said, is only 25 years old, and changing the lyrics of songs, a song, The Fighter, that he wrote for Nicole Kidman, changing the lyrics, that were about her to something that was about Maggie.
Stop the presses. The biggest lie in Hollywood has been exposed. For nearly 2 decades, Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban looked absolutely untouchable. The Hollywood goddess and the country heartthrob had somehow defied the universe's most brutal odds. But then 2025 hit, and that flawless illusion shattered into a million pieces. Mere days after Urban's sneaky, silent escape from their Nashville mansion, Kidman filed the papers. And just like that, the tragic truth she had desperately locked away for years came spilling out. Behind all those blinding smiles, that excessive hand-holding, and the sickeningly sweet red carpet vows was a scandalous epic of emotional betrayal, pure exhaustion, and a beautiful woman who finally decided to quit protecting a man who stopped bothering to fight for her. The perfect facade? Please. For almost 2 entire decades, Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban were shamelessly paraded as Tinseltown's ultimate symbol of enduring love. Proof, apparently, that fame wasn't a death sentence for a marriage. They were the sickeningly golden duo who somehow managed to balance high glamour with faux humility and artistry with sickening devotion. But darling, behind those polished smiles and perfectly choreographed poses was a tragedy far more delicate. Their so-called love, like almost every other epic Hollywood romance, began with a spark of magic and ended in a whisper of quiet, pathetic heartbreak. They first crossed paths in 2005 at the Good Day USA Gala in Los Angeles, a gathering to celebrate all things Australian. Kidman was 38, still basking in her Oscar win for The Hours, yet secretly haunted by the nasty wounds of her divorce from Tom Cruise, and the devastating loss of custody of her adopted children, Isabella and Connor. She had brilliantly rebuilt her career, her image, and her strength, but never her definition of family. Urban, barely 37, was a rising country star whose mournful songs screamed of a soul trying desperately to outrun his inner demons. He had spent years in a brutal war against substance abuse, sometimes winning, often losing. To the outside world, they were complete opposites, but to each other, they were just broken mirror images, each desperately needing some serious stability. Their connection was instant, but definitely not a whirlwind tabloid fantasy. Urban somehow waited months to call her after their initial meeting, later claiming he was utterly paralyzed by her superstar presence. When he finally did, it was a full-speed dive into forever. By June 2006, they had a gorgeous candlelit wedding at St. Patrick's Estate in Sydney. Nicole was breathtaking in her Balenciaga gown. Keith actually serenaded her at the reception. The whole night was intimate, emotional, the kind of event people foolishly call a gold standard love story. But, as we all know, a fairy tale rarely survives real life. Only 4 months after the I-do's, Urban checked himself into rehab for a nasty alcohol addiction. Kidman was completely blindsided, but instead of running, she did the impossible. She stayed. She actually waltzed into the rehab facility, playing his personal savior, shielding him from those cruel headlines, and dramatically telling her inner circle that true love demands endless forgiveness. Honestly, she wasn't just fighting for her troubled rock star. She was battling for the family portrait she'd catastrophically destroyed before. For the next few years, she was a one-woman show, keeping that facade absolutely flawless. Urban, ever the charming rogue, publicly sobbed his thanks at every award show, declaring her his literal saving grace. She clapped back with matching sincerity, proclaiming him the glorious man who miraculously brought me back to life. In 2008, the couple added the first accessory, Sunday Rose, swiftly followed by Faith Margaret in 2010. To the outside world, it was sickeningly perfect. Hollywood's highly disciplined queen had finally tamed Nashville's notorious wild heart, all thanks to the magic of true love. But darling, behind those gilded doors, the cracks were turning into canyons. His endless world tours, the lurking, shadowy presence of addiction, and her constant suffocating fear of losing yet another famous husband began to absolutely corrode the unbreakable bond they once had. She was a tragic figure, waiting up for calls that never rang. He, bless his restless heart, conveniently drowned his exhaustion the only way he knew how, through overworking, through relentless music, and through maximum distance. Nicole was strong, graceful, and stupidly forgiving. But even the biggest celebrities have their breaking point. And by the time the rest of the world caught on, the fairy tale everyone secretly envied was completely extinguished. It was shattering. The perfect, polished illusion was beginning its final, devastating descent. The marriage that became a gilded cage. By the time their 10th anniversary rolled around, Nicole and Keith had already survived challenges that would incinerate mere mortals. Rehab stints, transcontinental distance, and blinding fame had tested them. But the unbearable pressure to be visibly unbreakable tested them infinitely more. They evolved into supreme masters of cinematic illusion. On the red carpet, they were embarrassingly glued together like awkward teenagers. In interviews, they spoke in mind-numbing rehearsed sound bites. "We've never been stronger. We're each other's rocks." Yet beneath those repetitive words was nothing but pure, soul-deep exhaustion. Kidman was holding up a dying marriage that was visibly draining her life force. Urban, meanwhile, was getting ridiculously restless, utterly sick of being typecast as the man who perpetually needed rescuing. Their so-called love had devolved into a miserable, high-stakes balancing act. Nicole's entire universe revolved around rigid routine and her rebuilt family, the exact stability she'd tragically lost with Tom Cruise. Keith's life was predictable chaos. Endless tours, long suspicious nights, and the constant, alluring siren song of temptation. They tried to set pathetic rules. Never apart for more than a few weeks. Always talk before bed. But shocker, real life ignores celebrity contracts. Their schedules constantly crashed, promises were forgotten, and quiet, toxic resentment savagely replaced any lingering passion. She desperately craved his presence. He predictably craved space. By the mid-2000s, this couple's ridiculously public image became their multi-million-dollar brand. Magazine covers declared them Hollywood's last real marriage. The desperate fans needed to believe in them, so the celebrity couple happily embraced their roles. At every glittering award spectacle, Keith would theatrically peck her shoulder and whisper some painfully sweet scripted line right next to the cameras. Nicole would instantly respond with a practiced, composed, and utterly vacant smile. But darling, even the most oblivious insiders were starting to spot the fissures. The forced, high-pitched laughter. The subtle way she visibly flinched at his rehearsed public affections. To her closest confidants, the message was painfully clear. She was beyond exhausted from being his eternal lifeboat and anchor. To him, her desperate need for security and control was becoming overwhelmingly suffocating. The troubled man she had successfully rescued no longer enjoyed the feeling of being saved, and the magnificent woman who once found genuine peace in his presence now felt completely trapped in a performance that was utterly unsustainable. By 2023, the whispers exploded into full-blown rumors that they were essentially living two separate, parallel lives, that he was perpetually on the road, and she was finally done with the exhausting pretense. Yet, even as the whole world watched, Nicole desperately tried to anchor the family. She had tragically lost 2 children to emotional distance once before. She absolutely refused to lose the other 2 to this suffocating silence. Still, the deafening silence between them was growing louder than any public soundbite. The implosion, when love met its undignified end. By early 2024, those subtle cracks had become utterly impossible to ignore. Nicole Kidman was supposedly filming Practical Magic 2 in London with Sandra Bullock when her friends noticed a chilling shift in her whole demeanor. Her voice was suddenly soft, uncertain, and completely distracted. Crucially, she wasn't even mentioning Keith in the present tense anymore. Back in Nashville, Keith Urban had sneakily established his very own bachelor pad, pathetically telling his buddies he just needed space to think. The truth, obviously, was far simpler and infinitely crueler. He had already mentally filed the divorce papers. Nicole was tragically oblivious then. For many long months, she genuinely thought they were just navigating another bumpy rough patch. When nosy tabloids hounded her about the marriage, she gave those famous calm but robotic answers. Marriage takes work, and we're both completely committed. But that commitment had become horribly unilateral. Keith suddenly stopped returning basic phone calls and was consistently MIA at any family dinner. His calculated absence stretched from days into entire weeks. By June 2024, they were living fundamentally separate existences. She was in rainy London, grinding through long filming hours, and he was perpetually on tour, drowning his relentless guilt in noise and cheap applause. The last pathetic public sighting was at a Nashville soccer match on June 20th, and it was a total disaster. They looked awkward, distant, like two tragic actors stuck sharing a stage after the show had been permanently canceled. That disastrous outing was the precise moment insiders say Keith decided to permanently abandon the family palace. Nicole flew back from her London film set only to find an echoing, empty mansion. He was completely gone. No messy confrontation, no pathetic goodbye, just a swift, cowardly, silent exit. For a woman who had dedicated 2 decades to the insane notion that love could fix absolutely everything, the silence was a death blow. Yet, she still refused to let the narrative end in chaotic collapse. Even as the filthy whispers of a younger woman lurking in his greasy touring crew started to relentlessly surface, Nicole remained unbelievably composed. She went full lioness mom, hyper-focusing on her perfect daughters, Sunday Rose and Faith Margaret, ruthlessly vowing she would never, ever allow history to viciously repeat itself. When the news finally exploded in late September that she had officially filed for divorce, the public idiotically assumed she was the ruthless one pulling the trigger. But her inner circle knew the cold, hard truth. Keith had already checked out months prior. Her filing wasn't some calculated act of petty revenge. It was the only way to get her damned closure. The divorce that sent Hollywood into absolute chaos. When Nicole Kidman officially filed the papers on September 30th, 2025, the documents were insultingly brief. Irreconcilable differences. But lurking beneath those 2 bland words was 19 years of silent pain, unwavering loyalty, and a dam that had finally burst. Insiders claim she had agonizingly spent months praying he would actually grow a spine and change his fickle mind. He did not. He had already privately signed his portion of the paperwork weeks earlier, silently accepting the sweet, sweet release. What makes this even more delicious is the timing. Nicole filed a mere 24 hours after the world shockingly discovered Keith had moved out of their marital home. To those closest to her, this wasn't cold-hearted. It was textbook survival. Friends think her filing the divorce papers so publicly was her little, perfect act of revenge for him giving up on her. A source gleefully told Woman's Day. But even her pettiness was elegant. She wasn't truly angry, just profoundly hurt. She had relentlessly fought for that marriage long after he had completely waved the white flag. The divorce documents hilariously revealed her true values, her precious daughters. Nicole aggressively requested primary residential custody of Sunday Rose, now 17, and Faith Margaret, 14. Keith was pathetically left with a mere 59 days a year. Since both stars have their own obscene fortunes, absolutely no spousal or child support was even mentioned. For Nicole, this entire spectacle was never about the money. It was solely about locking down stability for her girls. But Urban's public reaction to the divorce bombshell was the final shocker. Just days after the filing, he appeared on a Pennsylvania stage. He had no wedding ring, and he shamefully skipped The Fighter, the syrupy love song he once dedicated to his ex-wife. Instead, he brazenly altered the lyrics to one of his breakup anthems, twisting the words to viciously snarl, "Take your space and take your reasons to take your unreasonable reasons." The crowd audibly gasped in unison. The message was unmistakable and loud. For the first time, the man she had painstakingly protected was publicly lashing out. He used his huge stadium stage to completely rewrite the tragic story, pathetically painting himself as the innocent one ruthlessly left behind. Nicole, predictably, played the part of the silent, dignified, and utterly devastated martyr. The goddess who miraculously rebuilt her whole universe after the Tom Cruise implosion was now tragically forced to watch her second supposed great love completely unravel under the global spotlight. The Secret's queen, Nicole, finally cracked. In the chaotic weeks following the divorce bomb, Nicole Kidman did something truly shocking. She dropped the flawless act and stopped hiding her raw pain. Forget the endless, boring, polished interviews and the sickeningly staged family photos. We got silence, followed by a delicious, accidental honesty. In a major Vogue cover story, published mere days before the split became public, the interviewer described her as strangely tentative, profoundly vulnerable, and utterly unsure of her next move. When asked the obligatory "how are you really feeling" question, she whispered something devastatingly profound. How many times do you have to be taught that you think you know where your life is going, and then it isn't going in that direction? Boom! It was the quietest confession of defeat, a blazing red sign that she already knew the guillotine was dropping. Friends are confirming she was holding on to a delusional hope until the very last minute. She's absolutely shattered, but still pathetic enough to be completely in love with him. A source dramatically told the Daily Mail, adding she would take him back in a desperate heartbeat. Even after his calculated walkout, even after those rumors started flying about his inappropriate closeness with a younger musician on tour, Nicole just couldn't sever the cord. But loyalty wasn't enough anymore, honey. The same unwavering commitment that once defined her was now her prison. Sources close to the couple confirmed that Keith had been a total emotional ghost for a full, torturous 6 months before his physical departure. While she was diligently filming Practical Magic 2 in rainy London, he was quietly shoving his belongings into boxes and slinking out of their Nashville mega compound. When she returned, poof, he was gone. No dramatic farewell, no decent explanation. To make matters 10 times worse, she later discovered the ultimate betrayal. He had already signed the final divorce documents weeks earlier. It's like he took a giant sledgehammer to her whole perfectly curated world, one insider shrieked. Yet even as the scandalous whispers of his inappropriate on-stage flirtations with that younger guitarist intensified, Nicole remained unbelievably composed, refusing to publicly humiliate him. She stayed off social media, avoided the cameras, and never uttered a single word of confirmation. But through the carefully selected friends and those devastating interviews, a clearer picture emerged. One of a woman who had single-handedly dragged a marriage across the finish line way past its expiration date, who forgave infinitely more than she ever let on, and who finally ran out of energy to give. The aftermath, the silence that screamed louder. By late October 2025, the initial, chaotic headlines were starting to thankfully fade. But Nicole Kidman's profound, heavy silence spoke 1,000 words. She was later spotted right there in Nashville, walking saintly hand in hand with her gorgeous daughters, her expression meticulously calm but completely unreadable. Her inner circle whispered that she had finally stopped torturing herself with the pathetic question of why he bolted. She's finally internalized the gospel. You simply cannot rescue someone who does not desire salvation. A tearful friend dramatically shared that for the first time in years, Nicole had retired her roles as the weary caretaker, the tireless rescuer, and the exhausting perfect wife. She was attempting the impossible, just trying to be herself again. In private moments, she admitted to friends that the ultimate, crushing blow wasn't actually losing Keith. It was the gut-wrenching realization that his heart had already given up on the marriage eons before her own had. She fought like a warrior until the final gasp, one insider breathlessly told Woman's Day. But the second she saw he'd already drafted his master exit plan, she knew the curtain was closed. What truly sent her over the edge was the horrific suspicion that he had been cannibalizing their most intimate, private life for his art. Nicole reportedly believes Keith shamelessly drew inspiration from their secret texts and vicious arguments to pen the lyrics for his 2024 album, High and Alive. When she confronted the accused, he just offered up a chilling silence. And well, that silence provided all the necessary answers. Despite this ultimate betrayal, Her Majesty remains effortlessly gracious. Sources confirm she has made the noble choice not to retaliate, not to expose every single shameful detail, even though she absolutely has the ammunition to destroy him. Instead, she's laser-focused on her beautiful girls, her incredible career, and meticulously guarding the peace she fought so brutally to win. Friends say she's staying put in Nashville, ensuring her daughters can finish high school without any more upheaval. Her only actual request in the divorce, a stunning 306 custody days a year, wasn't about control. It was about love. To her lifelong friends, this second spectacular heartbreak feels tragically familiar. She lost one family after the Tom Cruise nuclear fallout. Now she's lost another great love. But this time she's not running like a coward. She's facing the messy music head-on, expertly turning her quiet pain into a devastatingly defiant brand. The perfect Hollywood marriage is officially dead, but what remains is something far more riveting. A phenomenal woman who finally, mercifully, stopped protecting the pathetic man who shattered her heart. Now, Nicole Kidman once wisely declared, "You can't control life. You can only live it." Do you think she finally made the right, overdue choice by dramatically walking away? Let us know your burning thoughts in the comments section below. And seriously, don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, and notification bell for more of these ridiculously true Hollywood scandals.